Hey guys, welcome to another video. There was even more news today. There's been some interesting data mining stuff about directly moving your cursor onto the position of enemies, which is nuts, as well as some more information about World vs. World, would you believe it, from the devs. But we've been doing so much news recently. It's been a fair while since we did a Q&A. Let's get back to a good oldie. A lot of stuff has changed since the previous Q&A we did. This was me talking about, you know, how I'd messed up talking about Eviscerate on the friggin' Berserker Elite Specialization. I think it's about time we run into some new stuff. The main thing I would mention from the previous comments was a lot of people were interested in the guy I watched who did a Fallout New Vegas Let's Play and then disappeared halfway through because he got hooked on meth. This guy was called Johnny Nodoff. That was his channel. He wasn't a meth addict necessarily, I don't think, while he was recording the Fallout New Vegas stuff. He had previously been struggling with addiction. He was a really cool, straight-up guy. He would just always talk about it. Fascinating person to watch LPs on. And yeah, he went MIA for like 2 years. He did a video update like halfway through one of those years where he talked about some stuff. Came back, tried to do some more horrors, but at that point his audience had gone. You know, some people were really shocked that something like that can happen, but he is not the only example of someone I've watched who has disappeared on YouTube, including the very first channel I ever watched disappeared for a long time and just lose their foothold and lose their audience. It genuinely is a very scary place. So yeah. Let's go on to the questions. I think I've got some fun ones for today. First of all, this really got my head thinking and moving on to some interesting topics. DG Guydan says, question for the next Q&A. What are your ideas for further crafting levels in future expansions or patches? I had an idea recently for 500 cooking that will allow you to start crops, maybe as an addition to home instances or guild halls. I actually think feasibly the technology is there in the engine to allow people to do this weird kind of farming thing, definitely through home instances and guild halls. It's interesting because we always think of the home instance, but there are various places as we progress through the personal story that kind of function like the home instance and could allow us to grow crops there too. For example, if our orders continue to remain basically being nothing, the Chantry of Secrets we never have any reason to go to, the Vigil Keep, actually inside the Keep, and the Dermot Priory, outside of like living world instances, if we continue to, as a level 80 that has completed the personal story, never need to go to those instances, then yeah, those could totally be used for growing various things or having that kind of a play style in them. And it's more feasible than I think at first it might seem. Like at first that's very dismissible and I think it's like, oh, you can get rid of it. Hell, even look at Fort Trinity. Fort Trinity has Kea, whatever the hell it's called, where you can meet your Hearn. And in theory, your disciplines and stuff you do can be reflected in there as well. And you can have several places around Tyria. That said, I don't think that's likely. And I think there's a discussion here between two different things. Gathering and crafting itself. I think both are expandable. Gathering puts us into the famous fishing discussions where there have been no fish in the game before and they could eventually have it in there. I actually think, especially with the mastery system, it wouldn't be a crazy thing for ArenaNet to add the idea of gathering masteries. So I've talked about this before, but the idea is you'd have a mastery track, and as you progress in the mastery track, you learn to wield different rods and fish in different bodies of water and catch ultimately different fish. In masteries can give you gathering progression in totally different ways, which would be really cool in my opinion. It fits perfectly. But then for the crafting themselves, I'm very interested in the scribe, because obviously that's the totally new one coming with the expansion. I doubt we'll have many more new disciplines coming into the game after the scribe, but maybe they'll add us more. I am mostly interested, of course, in cooking, and I'm interested in jewel crafting, both going up to 500, which I think they both will do at some point. It's interesting to me that the expansion was kind of ArenaNet's chance to do big feature overhauls that the living world wouldn't allow them to do, and adding 500 for those two disciplines totally seems like this was their opportunity, but they missed it. So I think we'll still get it in the future, and these things have got very clear-cut areas where they can expand into. Jewel crafting, for example, some people will say, oh, but it's so easy to get trinkets anyway. Not really. There are weird stat sets for ascended trinkets that only sometimes exist in ring form. Oftentimes there's not like a back piece you can get. Oftentimes, like, they're weird mixed matches, and filling in all those gaps and actually making decent, coherent systems out of that, ascended jewel crafting can totally do. It's interesting to me that I always thought salvaging ascended rings and stuff would be tied to ascended jewel crafting and the Junlai Electrum ingots and all that stuff. But now, of course, they've revealed by salvaging that stuff we get dark energy, which is the new legendaries, and not necessarily dual crafting at all. But I do think we'll get Ascended dual crafting 500. I think that will be a thing. And infusions as well. This idea of getting higher rarities of infusions that give you these peanut stats also could be totally associated with that. And then for cooking, cooking's pretty obvious too, and I think they could do some really cool things with Ascended cooking. Maybe that would eventually still tie into cooking with the new fish people are getting and the new fishing mastery that gets added to the game. Or maybe it's just existing foods. There are a lot of foods out there that are really undervalued at the moment, even like late game foods that people just don't care about and they're worth nothing. There's high supply, little demand for them. Ascended cooking, could give us that stuff. I think what they could do with that is not just give us slightly more powerful food, but what they can do is they can give us new effects on food, like totally new effects on food, and actually look at the foods that are out there in the game that currently no one runs, like health regen food, stuff like that. A lot of the on-dodge food effects as well, people don't give a damn about, and actually buff those up, bring them up to par so it's more interesting part of your build, because right now it's really basic what you choose in most situations, and Ascended cooking can do that too, so that's quite nice. This also then kind of segued and spiraled me off into thinking something else. And this is related to the fact we're getting legendary armor so quick, a lot sooner than I think many of us were expecting to get legendary armor. And it's like, once we have legendary armor, where do we go from there? Well, legendary trinkets too, of course. And hell, Ascended dual crafting can totally be a thing for that as well. I should have mentioned that. But then I'm thinking as well, one thing that could be interesting down the line would be having Ascended runes and sigils. And then beyond that, legendary runes and sigils. And then from that point, you can swap the rune itself. It's like the legendary rune, and it can become any other rune in the game. But we have rarities of all the other tiers for the runes and sigils. So it kind of makes sense to go up to Ascended quality. Slightly more potent stats. The interesting thing about runes, though, is every time you tier them up, like a rarity, they tend to have, like, more slots or whatever. Like, they get, like, you get 2 slots for your low runes, then you get 2, like, you can chain 4 of them together for the rare ones, and then 6 for the exotic ones. Does that mean we'd get 7 for, like, an Ascended one? I don't know whether I'd agree with that design. I think that would bloat things. But again, they can use this as an opportunity, not just to add a tiny bit of power creep in the game and keep people crafting and doing stuff like that, even after they have their legendary armor and there's no more gold sinks and nothing to keep people entertained. They can actually use this as an opportunity to rebalance runes again and make certain rune sets more interesting, at the high end. In fact, I've been having a bit of an itch to do a video recently where I just look at runes and sigils and tell you guys what I think is really fun about them and how they can balance them well. Two fantastic examples for me that stick out in my mind. There is a sigil currently in the game where if you kill someone, you get swiftness for a period of time on kill. That's never going to see run in PvP, and people don't even run that in World vs. 1 stuff because swiftness is everywhere anyway. Swiftness doesn't stack intensity, it's just not good, it's short duration. But now that they're using a lot more super speed on kill for 10 seconds, that's a fun sigil. And when I think of runes, and I think of what's really fun about the runes that I truly enjoy, like, yes, Scholar runes are okay, because they're super high damage or whatever, right? But I actually find myself having the most fun when it comes to runes and sigils too that have, like, visible proccing effects on them. So Balthazar runes see a lot more use lately because of the tuning of burning. I very quickly identified Balthazar runes and did a burning elementalist video, and it's really fun to pop your heal skill on that elementalist and see, like, that flame burst come out, and it feels like you've augmented that skill and you're getting, like, a visual feedback. So I'd love to see that kind of effect play into a lot more runes. The death nova when you die as you explode should be really more pronounced. Just that cosmetic angle to things, I think, adds so much to the flavor of runes and can make them a lot of fun, even without having to directly compete DPS-wise with stuff like Scholar. If Scholar gave you, like, a slight glowing effect while in combat and above 90%, not only is there utility to that visual effect, so people know that their runes proccing without having to use third-party, apps, but also it gives you that little bit of power, and you feel like, yeah, I feel like my runes are actually changing me in some way. That stuff's fun. Some of my favorite sigils as well are like Geomancy and Hydromancy. Those were so exciting to me when I first started playing Elementalist, because I love the idea of swapping to fire attunement, and I'd get my fire burst from my trait, and I'd get my earth burst coming up as well, and then I could, go to water and drop the water 3, and I could do it all at once. As ineffective as those things are, that's the kind of flavor that I think a lot of people would really enjoy. Anyway, I could do a whole video on that. Let's move on. Next question is from Drew, who says, do you think we'll ever get skills that are undodgeable? At first, I thought it seemed like it was taking too much away from basic combat mechanics, but now we see Daredevil getting much stronger dodges. It could be very interesting. I absolutely think they'll do this. I think that people, the biggest misconception or lie about Guild Wars 2, or thing that people like to claim makes Guild Wars 2 good, is the dodge roll. like, dodge roll does make Guild Wars 2 a really good game, but the dodge roll is not exclusively the reason why we enjoy the combat so much. We enjoy the combat not just because we get 2 invulnerability frames, or as a Daredevil 3, you know, at our whim. We enjoy it because there's so much more movement-based stuff, because there's so little lag, because there's so little things that root us where we're in combat, and the dodge roll is this extra part on top of it. It is not the entire combat experience, and in some ways, removing that dodge roll has been very fun for me to experience. So yes, I think in the past, ArenaNet may have been scared to have added stuff that the dodge roll won't protect you against, but I think it's absolutely necessary in these raids. If they want to have giant kill zones and stuff that people forcibly have to move away from instead of just dodge rolling against a wall and continuing going, then by going through dodge roll is something I think we will see. Not only is it something I think we will see, it's something they mechanically can do. We already see stuff that goes through dodge roll. It's just often like not boss abilities. I think there are some boss abilities that do also go through dodge roll as it happens. But when you think about stuff like in one of the fractals where it was one of the Flame and Frost fractals, and there are the steam vents that come up after you've done the bit with the drill. If you try and dodge roll through those, you should in theory be invulnerable. You should be able to go through, right? But you can't. It will just kill you. Like, it's totally something they do in the engine already. I think we'll see a lot more of that. Next one's from Curly Finn, who says, WP, I was wondering if you think the Crown Pavilion will come back this year, or if the devs have forgotten about it. Yeah, I think the devs forgot about it. I'm sorry. I don't think they forgot about it. Don't let me say that. I think that they are too busy with Heart of Thorns, and I think that's fine. You know, my greatest fear, Heart of Thorns is going to be buggy, and it's going to be too small, and no one's going to give any other Guild Wars 2 expansion a shot, because they're not going to like this one. So yeah, let them go ham on Heart of Thorns. I'm fine. Next question is from Deviant Shark, who says, ugh, WP, I'm really sorry if this is too personal, but you smoke? I totally did not expect that. So, if you haven't been watching the stream, which started this week, we stream Guild Wars 2 for breakfast, 5 hours a day, through most of your early time zones. I'm on Twitch, and yesterday the potato we had for our face cam was smoking. That was just a background thing. I do not smoke. I've been very interested, though. I kind of come from a background and a group of people don't, like, think they're cool for it. And, you know, they think it's dangerous and it damages them. But a lot of people around me smoke, and it's not the worst thing in the world. It's really interesting. The amount of negativity and disappointed and sadness people have felt thinking that wooden potatoes smokes has been really eye-opening. No, I don't smoke. I just put it there for a bit of flavor on one of the potatoes. Moving on. Next question's from Sephism, who says, your latest video got me thinking, what will happen to the Silver Waste and Dry Top as well as some of the Heart of Thorns maps, probably after we defeat Morgemoth? Will it be all 2.0 in that it doesn't change and it kind of destroys the continuity? Or will they start changing the maps? I actually think they'll start changing those maps, and for a few reasons. If you look at the Silver Wastes, the way they designed that map with the thorns traveling across the zones, those have been designed in a way to retract and go away. And, you know, maybe there's more than one reason. Maybe there are multiple reasons why Heart of Thorns is small in scale and they went with the verticality rather than a lot of maps. And maybe it's because by only adding 4 maps, they can remove the Morgemoth influence from them after he's dead, a few months after they're dead, after Living World Season 3 or whatever. They can remove that influence from those maps with less effort. And even in, like, the new betas, you'll see, like, things look very jungly. But, you know, a lot of the explicit Morgemoth stuff, there's still roots that are coming out of the ground and spawning and, you know, can, in theory, retract. I actually was looking at a previous episode of my Guild Wars 1 Let's Play, and I was in the Maguma Jungle and I was at the Bloodstone, and I read the description for the Bloodstone, and it specifically says about the Bloodstone that the jungle cannot grow upon the Bloodstone. And this would be the idea that the jungle is, all of it, is basically Morgemoth's power. So what does that mean? The wastes come again? It all becomes the waste? That's a pretty dramatic change. But yeah, that could be a reason they made it smaller in scope. The fact they didn't want to spread people out and they're still not confident in mega servers could be another reason. The fact they didn't have the time is my most likely probable reason for why they did that. Moving on, the next question is from Mayhew, who's just basically got a good idea. Hey WP, here's a weird and interesting question. What do you think of actual changeable underwear and or bathing suits being added as clothing? This is a really great gem store opportunity, and if you don't know, you can actually dye this stuff anyway through a bug in the game at the moment using outfits and broken armor. You can dye your underwear and see it in the preview. Funnily enough, the Asuran underwear is like a onesie. It's like a swimsuit. But if you dye it, you'll actually find out in engine, the top half is a different item of clothing that is made to seamlessly connect to the lower half item of clothing, and you can dye them individually. So you can have like a black top half of your bikini with a, you know, a pink bottom half or whatever you like. It's kind of weird. I think that could be something we see in the gem store at some point. It's an easily monetizable section of the game. Moving on, the next question is from Cockney Knockney. Lovely name. WP, do you think they'll release class finishers for getting the champion insert class titles? I think this would be cool, but I also think that the champion titles are way too easy to get. So for those who don't know, in PvP, if you win 150 tournament games, or just ranked match-made matches, basically now is what it means. If you win 150 Guardian games, you become a champion paragon. And hopefully, with the expansion, what I'm hoping they do is they expand that for the elite specializations too. So those of us who truly love Mesmer and have PvP'd on a Mesmer for so long and got our 150 games years ago, when Heart of Thorns comes out, we'll be able to play and win another 150 games on a Chronomancer. Or even better, I'd like to see that push up to 500. If we're getting a lot of free-to-play people coming in, they're trying PvP out for the first time, and they're going to be climbing the ladders and the divisions and stuff like that when they come out. It'll be nice for them to have some long-term goals to go for. I think that's really important for PvP. And if at the end they get a shiny finisher, that's even better, you know? All these things would be really good for that side of the game, which is already, you know, it's getting that momentum. I want to see them nurture that. Dustin Hanswith says, when you do that little laugh at the beginning of some of your videos after a funny clip, do you sometimes take multiple takes? Or do you have a real honest laugh saved somewhere that you just throw in there? Or is it live and you just pretend you watched that funny clip? None of the above? Okay, no, one of the above. I do multiple takes sometimes. Because it just might sound really weird. I'll be like, oh no, that sounds terrible. I'll do another one. All right, like I could do multiple takes. But the way I do it is I'll already have seen the clip and I'll know what I want to do. I think it will have been a funny clip. Very rarely I may even have recorded the entire video and then inspiration strikes me in the editing and then I watch the clip. And I know, and then I edit it in. And then what I do is I play it on the edit track. I try and set my mind in the place as if I hadn't seen it before. And, you know, if I find it funny, which hopefully I still do, I just kind of like let that laughter come through. So I guess it's like half fake, half real, because I just watch it. And then, you know, the natural laugh that comes out of that, that's what I record and then I edit in. It's definitely not a canned laugh I do every time. That'll probably save some time, though. Maybe you'll just hear a canned wooden potatoes laugh from now on. Next question. This one I had a lot of fun with. RJ the Barbarian. We were talking in the previous episode about elite specializations, and we were talking about the fact that because you can only have one at a time, you'll never have the ultimate class that has everything all on it. So this response was, well, will my dream of a stealthing, blinking, boon-stripping warrior specialization never be a reality? The idea being that the stealthing warrior specialization will be a different elite specialization than the one that blinks, than the one that boon strips. Now, here's something I've got to tell you, RJ the Barbarian. You already have that as a reality, all right? All you need to do is you need to play as a non-warrior, okay? You need to take the trait that makes you reflect on block, and you need to run like sword offhand or something. Then you need to go into Fractals of the Mists, and you need to fight against Mai Trin as your boss. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go into the Mai Trin fight. You're going to stand really far away from her so that she aggroes on you with one of her abilities. You're going to pop your leopard form and stealth yourself, drop out of it. After she's targeted you, she's going to fire at you. You're going to use your riposte. You're going to reflect her projectile. You're going to blink in at her with stealth. And then you're going to strike her. And because you also cheekily gave yourself a sigil of nullification, you will boon strip her. If she actually has boons. And there you go. You just did all that on a warrior. Pretty good, right? RG Arrow 87 says, WP, with the creation of a scythe animation for the Reaper Shroud and the mechanics of the Revenant, do you think it's possible for us to get an elite specialization that channels Varesh Ossa or another dervish from the Lord to give us a dervish-type playstyle? Yeah, you know, maybe that's the next elite specialization. I think that Varesh Ossa already, honestly, would have been a much better elite specialization to go for than Malix. Malix, I don't know, like, he was cool and evil, but he never really talked to us very much. He was a giant monkey, guys. Though maybe that's a great opportunity for them to get some comic relief in there. If Malix talks to us at some point and he's like, I hate Warjamoth or something, that would be the best thing in the world. All right. And the final question is from Jacob Spanner, who says, at this moment in time, what do you think you will main when Heart of Thorns comes out? Has another elite specialization made you want to change class? Or has the Tempest put you off continuing the Ellie? Thanks for your great videos. I think it's very likely I'll stay on Elementalist. Really likely that I'll stay on Elementalist. However, there is my main thing that I'm really excited about doing right now. Since racial skills didn't get removed from the game, I really would love to play as a Necromancer human that runs the human Reaper of Grenth Shroud thing. And that's the #1 first thing I'm going to do in the next beta weekend. Specifically to run like a chill Condi Reaper. I think a lot of Necros are excited about Reaper because it's given their class, the Necromancer, a flat damage option beyond like glitch form, right? Or that may be more worthwhile in PvE at least. because the Lich form, though very well tuned for PvP, is underpowered for PvE. It's like the opposite of Staff, really, for Elementalists. It's really weird. But so obviously Necromancers would rather auto-attack in Shroud or with their dagger. So what I really want to do, though, is play a QandA Reaper using all that awesome synergy. I love the idea of builds that have synergy between their runes, their race, and their profession. That to me, that's what a fun build is. And that's why I want to see them play with racial skills more in the future and maybe tie them to masteries and stuff. We'll get into that topic in another day, though. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you've been enjoying the content on the channel. I wanted to do a Did You Know episode today, but we streamed for a lot longer. There is now a link. If you look in the description, I've updated the links and stuff. There's a link for playing the game for free, which helps the channel out. There's a link for buying the expansion, which helps the channel out. There is a link for my Reddit, for my Twitter, for the stream. I feel like a professional for the first time in like a long time. It's pretty cool. Thanks for having you watching, guys. I'll see you next time.